So, you want to hear another story, huh? One where the very fate of Pandora hangs in the balance? If not, too bad, I'm telling you anyway.
Borderlands 1, by the end of 2009, had sold over 2 million units. This led Gearbox and Take-Two to greenlight a sequel, and by August of 2011, it was confirmed and titled Borderlands 2. Only 13 months later, and it would be officially released in North America and internationally. When talking about the franchise, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't praise this game. It's argued to be the peak of the entire franchise, but why is that? What did Gearbox learn from its first outing that made this such an iconic game, and is it as great as you remember? Borderlands 2 opens with another story from Marcus recapping the events of the first game. Once Roland and the gang opened the vault and slew the monster, they rode off into the sunset disappointed by the lack of treasure. But opening the vault had repercussions. It caused this rare element called iridium to start growing on the planet, and this caught the eye of many, including the Hyperion Corporation. Now, if you don't remember or you didn't pay attention to the small texts in Borderlands 1, Hyperion was one of the manufacturers from the original game, and they're also responsible for the Claptrap Stewart bots. They came to Pandora to bring order and mine the new treasure. Upon doing so, they discovered that there was a second vault hidden on the planet. With that knowledge in hand, Hyperion's president vowed to find the vault and use it to subdue the lawlessness of Pandora, wiping out all the bandits. But things are never so simple. The talks of a new vault brought more people to Pandora, all in search of it. There were a new generation of vault hunters, and this is their story. It's also the story of Handsome Jack. After that recap, we get the intro movie, and right off the bat, it's apparent how much Borderlands 2 is an upgrade over its predecessor. The graphics are sharper, more detailed, and more defined, all while still keeping that iconic cel-shaded look. After a short bit with some bandits and psychos driving around, we come to a train ride gone bad. It's here we see 4 of our 6 Vault Hunters fighting off Hyperion soldiers. Now you may be asking yourself, why are there only 4 of them if there's 6 playable characters? Don't worry, we'll get to that in a bit. As the fight unfolds, we're introduced to our main cast of Axton, Maya, Zero, and Salvador. They fend off their attackers, all while pushing towards the front of the train. And once they reach the front, they kick the door down and are met with an ominous threat.
It's cute that y'all think you're the heroes of this little adventure, but you're not. Welcome to Pandora, kiddos.
The opening sets the stage in a much bigger fashion when compared to the first game. Where the first game shows a group of strangers all heading on an adventure, Borderlands 2 sets a much higher stake. You're not just here to find the vault anymore, because someone's out for your blood. Upon finishing the cutscene, we are brought to the character selection screen. It's here we can pick from our 6 Vault Hunters. One thing to note, however, is in Borderlands 1, where the character selection screen had a bit of style to it, with Marcus commenting on each of the Vault Hunters, 2 is a much more traditional menu to choose from. This isn't a bad thing by any means, just something to take note of. Our choices this time around are Axton, the Commando, who has a saber turret he can call upon, Maya, the Siren, who can use her phase lock ability to hold enemies in place, Zero, the Assassin, who can create copies of himself, and Salvador, the Gunzerker, whose ultimate sees him pull out 2 weapons to dual wield. These are the 4 base game characters, and they basically are evolutions of the original 4 Vault Hunters. They share similar base roles, but they're tweaked and different enough to make them stand out on their own. One thing to mention is that gone are the weapon proficiencies from the first game, so feel free to use whatever you want. Now remember when I mentioned that there were 6 playable characters? Well, it's here where we meet the 2 additional options, Gage the Necromancer and Krieg the Psycho. At launch, Borderlands 2 only had 4 Vault Hunters to choose from, but post-launch, Gage and Krieg were added as DLC, each with their own skill trees and styles. And if you have the Handsome Collection or the Game of the Year Collection, these characters are included. Gage summons a mech to do her bidding for her, while Krieg goes full psycho and runs around swinging his axe, becoming a badass, and potentially blowing himself up. Upon choosing your character, you can customize them from their appearance to their name, and it's here where we see another upgrade from the last installment. Where Borderlands 1 only let you change 3 colors of your outfit and add a hat if you're playing the Game of the Year edition, Borderlands 2 has skins that can be earned and unlocked for each character that not only change the color of your Vault Hunter's outfit, but they also change the designs on it as well. You can also find head customizations for each character to further add depth to your appearance. These can be given out as quest rewards or drop randomly in the world. The good news is, while each character has their own appearances, once you unlock a specific appearance for that character, it's unlocked for them on subsequent playthroughs. What's also great about this is that the cosmetic drops aren't character locked. What I mean by that is, take my playthrough for example. I was playing Axton the Commando, and I was getting cosmetics for other Vault Hunters as well as Axton throughout my playthrough. What this does is it lets you play the Vault Hunter you want, while also rewarding you with unlockables for subsequent playthroughs. All of this incentivizes you to play as different characters on those subsequent runs to see and use all those new cool cosmetics. Once we've chosen our Vault Hunter and start the game, we're greeted to Claptrap digging us out of a pile of snow. One thing to note is how much more animated Claptrap is this time around. The dialogue is still laced with that cynical humor, but it's a bit more robust. There are some great one-liners you'll hear throughout your adventures that will definitely make you smile. A couple even got a laugh out of me during my time. This doesn't just go for Claptrap. There's more dialogue in this game across the board. Characters interact and talk to you and each other much more, making a more organic style to storytelling. He hands us an echo device and dubs us his minion. We follow Claptrap as he rambles on about getting to a place called Sanctuary and curses a man named Jack for murdering his product line. We are then greeted by an all too familiar voice in our head. The same voice that spoke to Roland and Company in the first game has just contacted us. And just like last time, she tells us we need to follow that silly little robot. As we do, he proceeds to tell us how a man named Handsome Jack has been using this area as a dump site for everything he destroys, which includes old Claptrap units and dead Vault Hunters. If you haven't pieced it together by now, Handsome Jack is the same guy who set up the trap on the train that was meant to kill Axton and everyone else. Claptrap also warns us about a local alien race called Bullymongs and their leader Knuckledragger. And without warning, Knuckledragger descends upon us and rips out Claptrap's eye. We are now tasked with hunting the beast down and retrieving it. This is where the game teaches you its base mechanics: moving, combat, exploration, all the while Claptrap tries to lead us, blindly, as he rambles on. We come face to face with the boss, Knuckledragger, and after dispatching him, are led further across the tundra to a locked Hyperion blockade. The woman, after reprimanding herself for cursing, opens the blockade and urges us to find a way to repair Claptrap, as he is needed to help take down Jack. After collecting a reward from the loot chests, we continue following Claptrap as he tells us that in the town of Liarsburg, he's got a friend who can repair his eye. Unfortunately, things are never so easy on Pandora. We arrive to see the town is set upon by bandits, all who serve a man by the name of Captain Flint. You see, Handsome Jack knows we aren't dead, and he's made a public broadcast to any and all that whoever can bring him the heads of the Vault Hunters will be paid handsomely. This is actually something that is told throughout all the environments as well. There are certain bandit bunkers that have wanted posters featuring the 4 playable characters, each with their own bounty. Naturally, being bandits, this leads Flint to turn his attention to us. Once the town is cleared, we meet the big game hunter himself, Sir Hammerlock, who begrudgingly agrees to fix Claptrap. He offers us some work if we're interested, and afterwards we begin making our way to Flint, as the only way to Sanctuary is with Claptrap's boat that has been confiscated by the bandit captain. Flint is the first major boss battle to me. Yes, we do fight Knuckledragger and Flint's henchmen Boom Boom, but Flint is the first real opposing force. Upon his defeat, we collect our loot and make our way to our destination. After dealing with a few more bandits and getting in touch with Roland, we are welcomed into Sanctuary. It's here where our journey properly begins. It becomes apparent, however, that Roland is missing, so before we can deal with Jack, we need to find the leader of the Crimson Raiders. If that name seems a bit too similar to the previous game's Crimson Lance, that's because they're almost one and the same. And with that, I think it's time we talk about the biggest change to Borderlands 2, and that's its scope and scale. Borderlands, in terms of its story, is a very basic game. One friend described it to me as a go there, do this type of game. And there are no major cutscenes outside the beginning and the end of the game, save for the major character introductions, and the dialogue is kept to a minimum. Borderlands 2, as I mentioned, in the intro sets a much bigger stage for its story. This can be seen and heard throughout the starting area of the game. You meet the likes of Claptrap, the mysterious voice of Angel, Hammerlock, Flint, and even handsome Jack himself, all before leaving what I consider the tutorial zone. It's not just in passing, either. We are constantly accosted by Flint and Jack as we explore the snowy landscape. They constantly prod and berate us as we deal with the wildlife and bandit camps. And this brings to the forefront the other biggest improvement to Gearbox's storytelling: its villain. In Borderlands 1, Commandant Steele is the antagonist. The problem is, she's hardly heard from and she only shows up at the end of the game for less than 30 seconds. On top of that, the Crimson Lance is almost completely absent from the game minus 3 areas, 2 of which are at the very end of the game. It's apparent from the opening cutscene that Jack is the villain. He is what the players are working towards. Not only is he constantly chirping in our ear, but his handiwork is seen all over Pandora. If we aren't fighting Hyperion in any given moment, we're fighting bandits Jack has hired, or we're seeing what his mining efforts have done to the planet. Or we're listening to NPCs tell us what a jerk he is. Jack's presence is felt throughout the entirety of Borderlands 2, and this is one of the game's biggest praises. Everyone loves handsome Jack. He's the perfect bad guy. One of my personal favorite moments of his comes about halfway through the main story. There's a great twist that I won't spoil, and while everything is crashing around you, Jack is there like always in your ear. He whispers sinisterly that you only survived the train crash because he wanted you to. This whole time, you've been playing right into his hand. The best part is that's just the surface. There's so much more underneath it all. Remember how Borderlands 1 had side missions where you found Patricia Tannis' audio logs? Well, in Borderlands 2, echo logs are hidden as collectibles out in the world. And once collected, they add background details to the world and fill in gaps and add depth to flesh out the story. Let's take the initial quest, for example. In Liarsburg, you can find an echo log on Helena Pierce from the first game. This will trigger a side quest to go around and find 4 or 5 more logs. All 4 of them depict an interaction between her and Jack, and it gives us more details on the kind of person Jack is, all while filling in the gap between Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2. Back in Sanctuary, there's echo logs about how Roland led a group of rebels to reclaim it after the first game. At the time, it was occupied by the remnants of the Crimson Lance, so Roland offered them an olive branch. Join him and take the fight to Jack. Thus, the Crimson Raiders were born. Hell, even the playable characters have their own echo logs. You start with one on you and then you can find more later, and it helps us understand what led to their fateful meeting on the train. And each of them are all in different zones. So if you're playing on one character, you can find all the echo logs for other characters. In fact, most of the side quests you'll do through your playtime will have echo logs that pertain to your current goal of that mission. Not only does Borderlands 2 flesh out its world via audio logs and dialogue, but it also has a much more robust supporting cast. Yes, we see familiar faces including Scooter, Zed, Marcus, and Tannis, But we get new characters, including Moxie, who showed up in the DLC Mad Moxie's Underdome, Sir Hammerlock, Ellie, and fan favorite Tiny Tina. Not to mention all the unique bosses we agitate along the way. This game is bigger and more expansive, and as a lore nerd, I absolutely adore that. In fact, as I finished my playthrough, I remarked to a friend that I forgot how deep the lore for Borderlands goes, and it all started in Borderlands 2. But not everybody loves lore like I do. Most are just here for the gameplay. But don't worry, because while a great story and cast is nice, it means nothing to us if the game isn't fun. The story and graphics aren't the only thing to get a shot in the arm. Borderlands 1, while a decently sized game, felt a little small at times. This was due in part to the lack of locales. Sure, we went to different areas of Pandora, but they were almost always the same brown desert aesthetic, minus a swampy area here and there. Borderlands 2 instantly breaks that mold upon starting the game. Windshear Waste is a complete contrast to Firestone. While it's a lot of blues, it slowly starts to mix in shades of white as you progress to Liarsburg. The further you progress through the game, you'll begin to see how diverse Pandora's ecosystems actually are. We start in a snowy tundra, slowly moving into a desert snowy hybrid, then to a lush forest, back into the heart of the desert, and then ending in a volcanic environment by the end of the game. We even get to see a futuristic city that is being built by Jack at one point. Factories, caves, shanty towns, and even locales from the first game become zones we fight through and explore. Where Borderlands 1 is extremely one-note, Borderlands 2 uses its environments to help communicate progress as you adventure. So by the end of the game, you have a fantastic measurement of how far you've come. There's even an in-game challenge that tasks you with walking from the starting zone of the game all the way to the final zone. Speaking of, I think it's time we discuss how gameplay has been retooled in Borderlands 2. Upon opening your character screen, we can see some modifications made this time around. Instead of being a static menu this time, the menus act like pop-out screens that your character is physically looking at. We can see what our character currently looks like, as well as all of the other tabs. We have our quest log, our inventory, skill trees, maps, and the new Badass screen. Borderlands 2 introduced something called Badass ranks. In Borderlands 1, there were in-game challenges you could complete that netted you XP. They return in this game on a much grander scale. These range from find environmental collectibles like echo logs and vault symbols to defeating enemies in a certain way. Upon doing so, you progress through a second experience bar, which once full, increases your badass level and nets you a badass token. This token can then be spent on upgrading a bonus stat. These include, but aren't limited to, max health, max shields, gun damage, and a bunch more. This rank is also account-based, so it'll carry over into subsequent playthroughs, and you can always toggle it on or off. Gunplay is just as tight and snappy as ever, with more diversity to guns. The main manufacturers return each with their own flavor, but what makes them stand out this time is how they look. The higher rarity the gun is, the more unique it looks. Obviously, legendaries stand out the most, but rare guns look different from common guns, and epic guns look different from rares. It all helps add to the sense of progression. Hell, even enemies get a facelift. While we do get new enemies like bullymongs and nomads and more, the returning enemies all get new looks as well. And unlike in Borderlands 1, the new biomes are inhabited by a wide array of creatures. The best way to get around these biomes is... Catch a ride! Thanks, Scooter. The buggy returns, as well as the new bandit technical, which can seat up to 4, and it's still a dual stick control scheme, although I will say it does feel a little bit better to drive around in this game. However, sometimes I felt that the boost wouldn't register, but it most likely feels better due to how much bigger the zones are. Your quest structure is mostly the same. Go here, kill this, collect that, come back. But sometimes you'll have a bonus objective which nets you extra rewards. These can range from finding extra items or using specific weapons on your targets. You have all new weapons to earn, new grenade mods, new shields to equip, and even class mods and artifacts make their return. The former augments your character's specific traits in your skill trees, and the latter alters things like XP boosts or loot drop chances. Speaking of, once again skill trees are back. Each character gets 3 of them that alters their action skill and playstyle. And by the end game, you can have 1 full tree maxed out. With all that being said, I think it's time we finally confront Jack. After hours of looting and shooting, you'll have overcome adversity and loss, and have chased Jack to the volcanic vault, where he has captured Lilith and uses her siren abilities to charge the vault key and awaken the warrior. He turns the iridium-fueled monster on you. Now, this final level isn't too difficult if you're around level 30, but if you're under it, you might have a bit of a rough time. After defeating the beast, Jack is killed by either you or Lilith, and the choice is entirely up to you, and upon his death, it's revealed that the man behind the mask wasn't so handsome. After the mission, you collect your loot and watch our heroes honor the fallen and let the credits roll. Borderlands 2 does not end after the credits roll, however, there are multiple things to do post-game. You can go back and finish up any side quest that you didn't do, you can go and do all your challenges, and you can start up challenge mode called True Vault Hunter mode, where you face tougher enemies and earn even better gear. And after that playthrough, you can unlock Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, where you will face your toughest of challenges. There's also a ton of DLC this time around. There are these smaller DLCs called Headhunters, which are themed around the holidays, and each rewards you with new cosmetics. Then there's the major DLCs, and these consist of Captain Scarlet and her Pirate's Booty, Mr. Torg's Campaign of Carnage, Sir Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt, and Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep. Finally, there was one last DLC which was released in 2019, years after the game came out, and this was called Commander Lilith and the Fight for Sanctuary. The final DLC was released to bridge the gap between Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, and it was a huge shock to fans when it came out. Looking back, while Borderlands 1 birthed the looter-shooter genre, Borderlands 2 really defined it. It took what worked in the first game, like its weapons and humor, and really polished them. It took what didn't work, like the lack of story and the bland color palette, and overhauled it. Is it perfect? No. Some of the quests can get tedious, and the time quests can be a pain, especially if you're playing solo. But those are minor gripes at best. What it does well, and it's no surprise that it still holds up a decade later. So to answer the question, is Borderlands as good as you remember? Absolutely it is, and I think it's worth replaying just for the nostalgia alone. But that begs a new question, however. What about the third entry?